Alright, so let's talk a little bit about environmental regulation. Now, certainly, this issue is fairly interesting. It's fairly popular. I would make the argument it was more popular a few years ago, but the primary reason for environmental regulation is concern over effects of human population growth and the impacts of human technology. Believe it or not, it's good to try to take care of the environment. It's good to have a little bit of regulation here. It's important to you as business owners to make sure that you abide by these laws. This sort of thing began back in the 1960s. There are different levels of it: government regulation of itself, of businesses, and obviously suits by private individuals. And these things have all contributed to this law, or these laws, as time has gone on. The government has put regulation on itself: the National Environmental Policy Act of 1970, environmental impact statements and scoping. Now, criticisms of this sort of stuff fails to consider economic injury, because believe it or not, the environment and laws that we put in place on the environment would have an impact on business. Certainly businesses have to abide by this, and they have to spend more money to abide by these. Because there's too many alternatives. It's too descriptive, not analytical. Documents of compliance, process limits the usefulness of it. Government regulation of business, the Environmental Protection Agency from 1970. They look into air, water, endangered species, pesticides, solid waste, toxic and hazardous substances. And again, these are important things, y'all, and we do need to keep them in mind. We do want the world to be a better place for our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, etc., etc. Air pollution, certainly this is an issue. Clean Air Act and amendments. How do you enforce this stuff, though? There's civil and criminal penalties if you're polluting the air. Clean Air Act today, there's regulation, point source to bubble concept, emissions reducing banking, market rights, prevention of significant deterioration, permitting process and permits. Water pollution, again, these are issues that are near and dear to everyone's heart. I know that in the area where I live, I can drive down the road, and if I go over a bridge, I can smell the pollution. Alright, this is not a good thing. We want our streams and our lakes and our oceans to be clean. Goals and enforcement: no discharge from point source without a permit. Not yet reached the non-point source. Install is the first of the best practices of technology. Second is best available technology. Endangered species, again, important stuff. There are species disappearing, natural causes, and human effects. Do we want to have people go out in the ocean and take fins off of sharks and just leave them to die? Do we want people going into Africa and killing elephants just for their tusks? These are issues that need to be addressed. Considerations: destruction of habitat, that's critical. When you go and you build a new home, you got to think about what animals are having to move as a result of you moving in. Disease, commercial and recreational activities, other natural man-made factors, all of these can have effects on the endangered species and just the species in general in the area. Pesticide control, now this is something I've seen firsthand. Pesticides, that are sprayed on crops, can hurt the wildlife, but they can also get down into our water and hurt us. So pesticides must be registered and properly labeled, meet claims of effectiveness, and have no adverse effects. A few years ago, people were getting really sick off of these pesticides. Solid waste disposal, again, you have to keep up with this. Clean Air Act, noise control, solid waste, promotes having these laws out there promotes research, toxic and hazardous substances. We want to keep these things out of the environment. We want it to be controlled. We want it to be regulated. Does anyone here want to live next door to a toxic disposal center? All right. Superfund is comprehensive environmental response. Hazardous release requires government notification. Government orders responsible parties to clean up, and that's a very interesting law out there. It goes as far as, even if you buy the land and it's discovered on your property, you're still responsible for cleaning it up. But that's not going to stop you from suing the guy you bought it from. Business proposed reforms: prorate liability, exempt small contributors of waste, site cleanup, meet health and safety standards. All these things are things that businesses want. I would think that all of you want as well. Suits by private individuals. Certainly, we have suits related to nuisance theory, or public versus private. Public being the community, private being against you self. Issues associated with trespass and negligence, and even strict liability. All these are suits brought by individuals to combat some of these environmental concerns. Even today, there's trends in this. Loss of natural ecosystems. Are we expanding too much that we're not allowing habitats and ecosystems to survive? The ozone. Again, the hole in the ozone. I believe I read recently that it's not as big as it once was, but letting in those hazardous rays from the sun and gradually heating up the environment, those are concerns. Population growth. Are there too many of us now? Okay. Mass extinction. 30 to 50,000 animals and plant species are extinct each year. There's increase in man-made causes. We're taking over. We're destroying the rainforest. We're overbuilding, overpopulated. All these things are concerns. Ozone, 1990 agreement to stop production of certain fluorofluorocarbons and halons. The goal is to reduce the destruction of the ozone layer. Believe it or not, as of 2008, these chemicals were no longer in production. Greenhouse effect. Okay, carbon dioxide levels are up 6% since 1960. Remember, carbon dioxide is what the plants breathe in, and they breathe out oxygen. Okay, are we harming ourselves by doing what we're doing? Population growth. At the current rate, the world's population will grow by 8 to 8 billion. I think we're at 5 or 6 billion now. That's a lot of us. All right. Now, certainly, there's cultural religious issues that directly affect policies that are set in place. China, I believe, has a rule where you can only have one child. Wow. Some of you may have 2 or 3 kids. I have 2. What if I had 10 or 20? Gosh, that would be a lot of diapers. But regardless, these environmental issues affect us each day, and we need to know a little bit about these laws in an effort to know how our business is regulated so that we can conform to the law.